So I'll try to meet you at your hypothetical as good faith as possible. If it was the case that a trans woman and a cis woman had the same training regimen, what if trans women make up like 1% of the population, but like 15% of like high-level athletic teams?
Well, if we saw that, if we saw that trans women are like making 15% of athletic teams, well, then that would be a point where we would say, yeah, that's unfair. We have
Yeah,
to
but like, are you
reevaluate this.
gonna
But we
are
don't
you
see
gonna
that.
just remove them then? Like at that point, it's too late. Now women's sports is gone because there's no shot with the way
No.
that culture trends right now that people are gonna be like, okay, we made a mistake. Sorry, trans people, we're kicking all of you out of women's sports now. That's never getting changed. I think people realize that,
Well,
and I think that's a fair thing to understand.
I think that's fair. But
Oh, good luck. Good luck to all for this conversation. Hello, hello.
hello, hello.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
About to be horrible.
Yeah, I just got out of choir rehearsal.
Cool.
Yeah.
Wait,
So,
how long have you been singing for?
I've been singing for one, two. I've been singing for 5 years. I started singing when I joined my grade 10 choir, and I'm in my second year of my bachelor in music.
Oh, what if you don't mind me asking, when did you start transitioning?
I started transitioning in summer 2020, which is in between grade 12 and my first year of university. So I sing bass. I mean, like I'm almost fully transitioned. Like just everyone like calls me by Ashley. Like I started girl moding when I started university, but
Mm-hmm.
I've just been singing bass the whole time. So it's been pretty cool.
Gotcha. Like actual bass or baritone, like for range?
Bass, no, bass too, like low bass.
Jeez. Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. I don't know if the age it feels like it would be a nightmare to try to transition for voice and singing choir at the same time.
Oh you can like voice training is just about like expanding what you can do with your voice because like estrogen doesn't affect your voice at all, unlike testosterone, which does.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well,
Yeah.
where do you want to start?
Um. I mean, first I wanted to say, I mean, I don't think that I think me helping out on the panel went like not too good because it was my first panel and like I didn't really know how to talk to 16 people at the same time.
Yep, that's a
Which is why
prime panel.
yeah, that's a prime panel, yeah. Which is why I wanted to do the one-on-one conversation with you. And I get, but I guess what I actually want to talk about is like, so what's the like in your mind, what's the actual best solution for to deal with trans athletes?
I feel like the best solution basically just kind of sort of fucks over trans people, but I don't know if there is like a better solution. Like the best solution is that like anybody that wants to compete in the men's category can, which is already how it is, but that like
Mhm.
you have like a protected space for cisgender women basically.
Okay. Um, so I guess your I guess your preferred solution with trans like female athletes because with trans male athletes it's not a problem like
Well,
they'll
be
compete in men's categories.
yeah, but the problem with trans male athletes is I don't think trans men are even competitive with male athletes, which is kind of like the saddest thing. But
Well, it's really hard to say because we haven't had a lot of trans male athletes, and like with trans women, a lot of the first forays into sports are going to be failures. Like trans people have been allowed in sports since like 2004, but we've just only seen like people to like start like winning with like Lia Thomas or Veronica Ivy, and even like Laurel Hubbard. She was the first trans person to be at the Olympics after 18 years of trans women being allowed, and she finished last place in her. She didn't even get a successful lift. So, but with like trans men, like that, I think it's very reasonable to assume that they'll be competitive, given 5 years time, maybe.
I would
Just
be
as more.
absolutely shocked, and you can quote me on this, so maybe I'm wrong in the future. I would be absolutely
Yeah.
shocked if somebody that's gone through puberty as a female will be athletically competitive with males in like sports where gender differences matter. Like, because people will start linking like trap shooting and race walking and stuff like that. Like maybe at that,
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
yeah, like those are the two that I saw in some thread earlier. Like maybe in those, like they can be competitive, but like in terms of like basketball or hockey or any like major athletic sport or whatever, like football, I would be shocked if any trans men, except it may be very 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 niche roles. I'd be shocked if they were competitive in those sports.
I mean, yeah, I think that's fair. Again, there has been like research into how trans people are very like discouraged from like even going into sports, from like so many different angles. But I mean, yeah, I think it's going to be like a lot like a, probably a long while before we see any trans men. Like realistically in any of like big like your big four sports, or in any of the ones that have like larger gender discrepancies like weightlifting, or like you said, like hockey or something like that. But with events where the gender discrepancy is a lot smaller, I feel like that's where you'll probably see trans men like show up first, like with running, for example. I can't. I'd have to go and find it. That might take me a minute, but I
Sure.
do have a study showing the discrepancies per sport, and it's not the same. Like weightlifting is like up to like 40% difference. Males are better than females, whereas in other sports it's only like 9 to 10% difference. And a lot of the times with the women like only joining sports recently, they're still getting better. So like there's a lot of like factors to take into account with trans men. But
Sure. I
again,
get
trans men isn't
when we
really a
talk about like
problem, right?
elite athletics, I
Mm-hmm.
would be very hesitant in using like percentage differences. I don't know how that's quantified unless we're literally just talking like weight you can lift. I guess I can weightlifting, but otherwise, like, do you ever play any games like League of Legends or StarCraft or whatever?
I play Overwatch.
You play Overwatch. Okay, like the difference between like a bronze Overwatch player and like a high diamond Overwatch player is going to be far greater than the difference between like a high diamond player and like a professional player. But like
Yeah,
that difference is everything when it comes to being competitive on a professional level, right?
yeah.
So when we
Well,
say like 10% difference, like that might be the difference between like a really competitive high school person versus like a pro. So like that's the only reason why I like talking about like 5 or 10% difference. But regardless or irregardless,
yeah,
whatever.
I'm pretty sure those numbers were pulled like from results, like they were pulled like they were analyzing results of like of like top athletes in each sport performance. But that's besides the point. With again with trans men, it's there's not really a problem. Like trans men want to compete in the male category, so they will, and well, it will be a while before we see like any like super large trans men.
Mm-hmm.
But but again, that's not really the problem. That's not really like the problem when people talk about fairness. It's trans women that like the whole like conversation centered around.
Yeah.
And so how do you deal with like trans women? There's like a couple different routes, and I think like what we do now is probably the most fair route, because otherwise you're like directly fucking over like trans female athletes in a way that you don't fuck over like cisgender female athletes currently.
Well, but I feel like people are gonna feel like you are fucking over cisgender female athletes because they have in arguably a protected
Mm.
place for them to compete, and now that place is like no longer in existence in terms of being segregated off for just cis women, basically.
Okay, so I guess so first there's a difference between whether something feels fair and whether something is fair.
Okay, let me
I
go back and use harsher language. Cis
Obama.
That's okay.
women have a
Okay.
category that's made for people that have been training as women for their entire lives and then compete as women. To take somebody that's able to train as a man in arguably the most formative and important athletic years of their life and then have them competing against women after some hormone therapy for a while is unfair if the boundaries are set at sex. That would be an unfair thing.
Um, so like I get why like that like I get why people like think this and why people make this argument, but I think that that any unfairness that comes from trans women being able to participate in cis female sports is less than the unfairness that would be through any other route that you'd have to deal with trans female athletes, because trans female athletes don't take anything away. They're not invading like cis female spaces. Like trans female athletes
Well,
are
but in
not
this
like,
case they quite literally are, right?
well, what do you mean they quite literally are? Like a trans woman
I
being
cannot go and compete with women in women's events anywhere. I can't do that. I can't have my records up there. I can't be in the
no,
same
I
race as
know.
them. I can't do it. But a trans woman can, right? A turf would
Yes,
literally say
because a
there's
trans
an
woman has, taken like HRT and such.
sure, but that's not relevant to what we're talking about, right? I'm saying that people can view it as an invasion, and then we'll get to this part of the discussion. But like, if it is the case that training as a biological male for many years of your life and then
Mhm.
competing against women is like violating that gender, like that
Yeah,
sex like
be
barrier,
cool.
then I mean I can understand why people say like, oh, it feels like this is like an invasion.
No, I totally get why people like trans women in female sports is not an intuitive thing, especially for a lot of people who don't already like understand a lot of trans issues. So like I totally get why like if you're a cis person who's only really ever heard of trans people through the news, maybe you know someone through someone else, which is what a lot of cis people with trans people, a lot of cis people are just like
Obama,
apathetic
yeah.
towards trans people. So it's not an intuitive position that makes sense, but that doesn't mean it's less right. It just means that it just means that it requires like more knowledge and explanation that doesn't like make intuitive sense if like that makes sense. So, but I guess I want to like before like we like get into the data or whatever, I just want to pose like a hypothetical. Like let's say it is the case that HRT completely just eliminates any advantage that a trans woman would have over a comparable cis woman, you know, trained for the same sport in the same amount of time, like same size, you know, they have the same lean body mass, they have the same hemoglobin and all that stuff. So you have like a 5'9" trans woman and 5'9" cis woman. And there's just no discrepancy between them. If that was like the world that we lived in, whether or not that is the world we live in, would you say that that was fair for trans women to compete in cis female sports?
I think you have a slightly stronger argument, but I'm still not sure if that would even be okay because the effort for the trans woman to hit that level of fitness is going to be so much less than the effort of a cis woman to hit that level of fitness. Um, so, say for
I
instance, we're talking weightlifting, right? If I was
mhm.
able to train as a biological male from ages 13 to 18, and then I transition, and then I compete against cis women at 21, if my lifts are even to a cis woman, that cis woman probably trained like 10x harder from 13 to 21 in order to hit the numbers that you're basically coasting to from HRT, right? Because basically you would lift, you'd hit some peak strength in like 18, 19, then you get on HRT and you probably do training to maintain, and then you'd lose some muscle mass because you'd lose some testosterone. But like the amount of training that the cis woman would do just to catch up, it would kind of be like saying, do you think it'd be okay to do performance enhancing drugs for 7 years, but then you stop for like 2 years and then you compete against like natty people? And it's like, well, fuck, you got to train on roids for 7 years. Like, yeah,
Well,
maybe your test levels are down now, but like you've got such a huge head start in your prior training.
yeah, well, that's why I said that you take that like in this hypothetical, you'd have trans people who train for the same amount of time. So if you're a trans woman who train for the same
Yeah,
amount
okay,
of
yeah,
time
sure.
as a cis
So
woman,
I'll try to meet you at your hypothetical as good faith as possible. If it was the case that a trans woman and a cis woman had the same training regimen, or I'm sorry, so we'll an AMAB,
same training experience,
yeah,
yeah.
AMABs, assigned male at birth has same training experience as a cis woman, and then they both reach 21, and then the AMAB transitions, and then they compete at 22 or whatever, and we find that their numbers are comparable, or their lean body mass and all that is comparable, then at that case, I would have to say yes. I'd be forced to, yeah.
Okay. Okay, then yeah. Okay, so then the position. So then the disagreement, I guess, is over. Then at what point does the discrepancy from a trans woman on HRT become unfair to where we should disallow them from the sport? Like, I guess that's the main question here, right?
Yeah,
Um,
but it just seems like even with so one of the arguments we got over on Twitter is you kept wanting to say like, well, we should control for height, and then we can
yeah.
like get rid of a lot of these differences. But like height is one of the hugest differences between men and women. So like if you control for
Well,
height, you're controlling for arguably one of the biggest variations. So I don't understand how
well,
like these kinds of controls are fair.
Okay, so the reason you control for height is because you're comparing individual athletes. If you take a 5'9" trans woman and then you know put that trans woman on HRT and then you compare their numbers to a 5'4" cis woman with you know same training, same all that, like obviously the trans woman is going to be stronger because a 5'9" cis woman is going to be stronger than a 5'4" cis woman. Like that's going to be the case.
Yeah, but
And
isn't that the
just
prop?
because
Isn't that the
well
issue then? The average trans
well I
woman is yeah.
I don't think that that's a problem because we already do have height discrepancies like there when it comes to six female groups like that there are absolutely like groups of people who are more naturally taller than there are
Yeah,
than
but
other
don't you
parts
see?
even within the same sex
But no,
like
but between sexes, there's still a difference, right?
yeah, but when you look at when you look at like female athletes and when you look at like trans women and trans female athletes, they tend to be around the same height.
No, no,
Especially
no.
like when it
That's
comes to
so like
no,
if
hold on.
oh,
When it
okay.
I
Yeah, it's okay.
just
Yeah, go
wanted
for
to
it.
say that when it comes to sports where height does like matter, you actually do see female athletes have a much higher average height. for swimming, for example, it's 5'9",
Sure, they can
which
have
is
a average
way
higher height, but
over.
like if I look at the NBA, the average player in the NBA is 6'6". The average player in
Hmm.
the WNBA is only 6 feet tall. So if all the NBA players were to transition, you'd expect to see sports where height matters. Trans people are going to disproportionately dominate in these sports because they're so much higher along the curve. A man that's 5'10" is, if that man transitions, a 5'10" male is, or 5'10" trans woman, I'll say, is in like already the 98th percentile for female height. 90, and that's just average male height. So if you have a whole bunch of people transitioning, you're already ahead of 98% of cis women just by height alone. That's why I feel like controlling for
Oh,
that is so like weird. Like,
oh, well, I would understand this argument if trans women were simply more common, but they aren't. So trans women are actually about as common as tall women are going to be as common. Like trans women only make up like what, like 1%,
sure, but
maybe
like
even
what if
less
we,
than that
sure, I
of all cis
understand the
women,
numbers
and tall
game.
and yeah,
But
and
like, what if we have
like.
like, what if trans women make up like 1% of the population, but like
Mhm.
15% of like high level athletic teams?
Well, if we saw that, then if we saw that trans women are like making 15% of athletic teams, well, then that would be a point where we would say, yeah, that's unfair. We have
Yeah,
to
but like, are you
reevaluate this.
gonna
But
you're
we
are
don't
you
see
gonna
that.
just remove them then? Like at that point, it's too late. Now women's sports is gone because there's no shot with the way
No.
that culture trends right now that people are gonna be like, okay, we made a mistake. Sorry, trans people, we're kicking all of you out of women's sports now. That's never getting changed. I think people realize that.
Well,
And I think that's a fair thing to understand.
I think that's fair. But at the same time, I think thinking that that trans women are going to ever make up that percentage of elite sports, I think that's also just very like unrealistic. We already only see like again 1% and again, if we're going to talk about height, there are more tall women than there are trans women, and so then when you see like tall trans women who end up in these sports, they're going to be about as common when you as cis female athletes who are that tall as well, like Lia Thomas, for example. She's 5'8" or 5'11", depending on where you put it. But many like female swimmers are 6'2", 6'3", 6'1". Like there
Hold on,
are
you
like
say many, but again, the average height of the woman NBA player is 6 feet
yeah.
tall. I don't think there are many 6'2" women. You're probably at like eight fucking standard deviations off the normal. They're
Yeah,
like,
but we're talking about athletes. We're already this far away from standard deviations of the general population. Like this is what athletics is. Like we're already looking at that. We're already looking at like
yeah, I
the bounds
understand,
of
but you're
humans.
drawing from a pool of people now with trans women that this pool's curve is going to be like. Do you have my stream on?
Yeah.
Okay, like this is like what it feels like this is what we're kind of this is the argument that we're making for these traits. Okay, that like if average cis women traits are clustered around here, and then like average cis male traits are clustered around here, it's like you're trying to make this argument that like once people transition, they shift down this curve. Maybe we'll say that they're like at this point they shift down to below average, whatever the male performance will be, or we can even shift it down more. Or we can even shift it down more. Regardless, wherever you shift this curve down at, the distribution is going to be totally fucked because you're taking a trans woman that can be a wholly average cis male prior to transitioning and now as a trans woman, just by virtue of being a trans woman, they're already way ahead of 98, 99% of women before we even start to talk about like, well, who's competing in sports, who's doing whatever.
Are we just specifically talking about like height here?
Well, if we want to talk about the problem is when we try to talk about other things like lean body mass or whatever, you want to throw away all those studies because you say, well, they didn't control for height.
Oh well, no, I don't want to throw away them. I actually like with for example, the one that you posted, the Joanna Harper British Review of 24 Studies. I actually that's actually something that I do like. I do like criticize like I do have the criticism that doesn't control for height, but like the study itself. The conclusions from the study say that we cannot make any conclusions based on the evidence that we have. Like more research needs to be done, and that research would control for height because if you want to talk about the effects of HRT on stuff like lean body mass, stuff like on the stuff that like matters. Like because again, like lean body mass is one of the biggest factors for like the discrepancy between male and female sports performance. Is that well, you would want to compare a trans woman to a cis woman who has similar like stats,
Okay,
like
let's
similar
say
training
sure.
years, similar height, because that way, because then you can see the effect of HRT, and if HRT, brings the trans woman's lean body mass down to cis levels or like slightly above, which is honestly that's likely where it's probably going to be, is like slightly above or around there. Um, so
Yeah, but like, okay,
so
let's
then
say
that
that I
you
have
get the
like,
comparison.
I understand what you're saying. Let's say that we have like two different groups of people. Okay, we've got Bukondans and Mokondans, and let's say that Bukondans were 5 feet tall and Mokondans were 7 feet tall, and that was the averages between the two. And then I want to compare like, well, is it fair to have these two groups of people competing against each other? And then when I do the comparisons, I'm only comparing the very tallest Bukondans with the very smallest Mokondans, and I'm like, oh well, look. When I look at the extremes of both ends of this, they seem relatively comparable. So boom, let's have them all compete. Well, I mean, the people that are on average 7 feet tall are like going to start to crush because they have huge advantages. And if you control away for height, like you're getting rid of one of the biggest advantages they have in your control.
Well, I guess I take a couple issues with this with this hypothetical, and the first one is if we're just talking about height, the argument then is that well, just because trans women are taller on average, that in and of itself is an unfair advantage because on average the group is going to be taller than cis women, even if a trans woman who's 5'9" performs the exact same as a cis woman who's 5'9", similar training, etc because there are more trans women that are taller, that inherently is going to be unfair. So I get, is that like the argument that you're
Yeah,
making?
you're drawing from a larger group, basically.
Okay, so
Or
I
when I
guess
say
I
larger
guess
group, I mean you're drawing from a group of people that are like just naturally far larger.
yeah. So I guess what I'd have to say to that is that cis female athletes in sports where height matters are going to be that tall and
I understand that they're going to
trans.
be that tall, but they're at a
Yeah,
disadvantage because the pool that they're like, these are exceptionally tall women in order to make it in these like cis women sports, whereas it would just be like an average height or maybe a slightly above average height trans woman that would be competitive due to height. Like,
yeah, and like again, there these things exist in other like categories within set. Like
yeah,
there are
but
like
those
within
other
no
categories
problem
aren't
cis female.
divided by height. These are divided by sex. So when these
Well,
advantages are coming from sex, like it seems like, well, fuck, like that seems a little bit unfair to the people that want a sex protected category.
yeah, but I guess I just don't see that that a discrepancy that would exist in it like within a cis female group is that's fair because we do see discrepancies like this in which for example in a distance running
Sure, but even if the
like
discrepancy exists because of the thing that they try to control for by having it be like a cis woman's only event, then people are going to be upset about that discrepancy. Nobody's going to be
well
mad about a weak woman getting beaten by a strong woman, but like a strong woman, people don't want to see like strong women compete against weak men. Like like even if like the strength levels are comparable because it's supposed to be separated by sex. So if some of the advantages, like height, namely, are coming from being a different sex and going through puberty as a different sex, people are going to perceive that as unfair.
so again that's perceived as unfair and whether what something is like perceived
Well, it's
as unfair is
I'm sorry, I
actually
keep saying
unfair.
this word. It is unfair because they're getting an advantage due to sex, due to puberty before transitioning, and the categories are meant to be divided by sex.
Yeah, and so the fact that trans women are going to be taller on average, well, yeah, that is going to be an advantage that trans women on average, not individually, have over cis women counterparts. Because again, when in this hypothetical and based on what like it seems to all be pointing to that trans women, their lean body mass is going to and their performance is going to be at or about slightly higher than cis female levels. That it's just the disadvantage comes from the average of the group and not actually athlete to athlete to athlete.
Well, but I mean,
So like
advantages
I
from the
like
group are eventually going to filter down from athlete to athlete, no? Like the average tall woman, the average tall cis woman basketball player is going to be 6 feet tall. The average tall trans woman basketball is going to be 6'6".
well I. I guess I don't know about that. Considering like you would still see like trans women who are going to be like around 6 feet, because like
Oh,
just because like a trend like a the average height in the NBA is going to be like super tall, like 6'6", like you said. Trans women aren't like trans female basketball players are not on average 6'6". There's actually there's actually in a couple studies that I think the one of them was even in the Joanna Harper review that you linked that show that trans women don't actually, even before HRT, do not perform as well as men. Now that could be for a variety of reasons, but whether it's the case is that we do see the fact that trans women, even before HRT, they do not perform as well as men.
Wait,
In,
why not? What is that?
in
What
many
do you mean?
categories.
How?
So a trans woman before HRT, like these people will not perform as well as cis men.
Why?
Yeah, so there's a variety of reasons.
Well, no, okay, yeah,
One
but
of the
like, hold
reasons.
on. You said that like 12 times. What reasons?
Yeah, well,
Why?
I was just gonna get it. Well, the first one, the paper that specifically talked about this, posited a couple different reasons. The first one was like general dysphoria from working out, and so that oh shit, my was gonna die. But general dysphoria from working out. Another one is the disadvantage of like how trans people are discouraged, I should say, from pursuing sport activities. How trans women are likely going to
Okay, hold on.
rather like
I don't
not.
understand what your study is controlling for. I would be interested to have a link to that. So you're telling me
Oh
that
yeah,
somebody with
absolutely.
comparable lean body mass from one pre-transition trans woman to a male, just their muscles don't work as well because of dysphoria?
Well, well, this is an on average thing, right? This is the same on average thing as like height. Like trans women before HRT, on average, do not perform as well as cis men on average for a
Oh, so
variety
this
of
is just
reasons.
like coupling
Yeah.
everybody together? Okay, sure. That's like a totally worthless number. Well, I don't care about that. That's not relevant to anything, no?
The reason I brought that up is because to say that trans women are going to just compete as well as men even before HRT on average, like again, since we were talking about height, that's not going to be the case all the time. But regardless, it is true that because trans women are going to be taller on average, that is going to be an advantage they have over cis women. But I think that it is an acceptable advantage because there are advantages that people have, and when compared to the other,
But the
because you
problem
have to
is
look at
when the
the
advantages come from the very thing that people are trying to restrict, which are sex categories, that's the issue, is when the advantages are coming from that.
well, like I said, like that is an advantage that does go against that is a result of sex, and we do separate based on sex. But the unfairness that would come from the fact that trans women are on average taller, is not as unfair as just barring an entire like 1% of all females from who because like 1% of women are going to be trans women, just using that, barring them from women's sports. I think that is a more unfair reality, is to bar them from women's sports and essentially bar them from sports in general, because trans women who transition are not going to be competitive in male categories. That's just the case, and so
Yeah,
that
but like let's say,
it
but now
is
like
a
even if it
lesser
isn't
unfair.
national levels, if you start getting schools full of like the top like female categories being like record holding, even in like a school level, or like trans women, everyone is going to hate that arrangement. The trans people are going to feel bad because everybody hates them. All the cis women are going to fucking hate them. Everybody else in the school is going to like, nobody is going to view that as being like a good competitive thing. It's just going to feel like it's going to feel horrible for everybody involved.
Well, we don't, we don't live in that world, and like the amount of trans female athletes that are going to be that are going to realistically like finish ahead of cis women consistently and all of the time is so very few that it's going to be about as common as cis female athletes that constantly dominate their competition and win all of the time.
Yeah, but people are
Like if
okay with cis women dominating cis women. It's different when trans women are the ones dominating. When the
Yeah, I know, but that's another one that where it just feels wrong, whether it's actually unfair or not. Because again, the alternative is to essentially tell trans women that if you transition, you cannot play sports. or if you do, you have to pretty much suck it up and play in the amateur leagues with men who are going to be better than you,
Sure,
like
but I mean, like,
significantly better.
but then you keep saying that that's like the negative world, and I guess that can be. But the other world is where women just feel like, oh shit, well, like all of our sporting is kind of fucked now. Like we can kind of compete against ourselves, but we're never going to be competitive at like the ultra highest levels because you're going to start to see trans women filter through to just having these huge biological advantages that this league was created literally to exclude.
But you're not going to see that with just the number, like again, with the number of trans women, the number of trans female athletes, and the number of trans female athletes that are going to be at the elite level. Like this is just something that like, let's say we see a couple like trans women who just like completely dominate like records in some categories, and we just like haven't seen that yet, where
I mean, like
they
we've seen.
break
I
like
mean, the Lia
national
Thomas
records and
story
stuff.
is like the latest story. I think there have been a couple
Yeah.
weightlifting ones, but
For example, like Lia Thomas, all the records she holds are records at her own school, like at Penn State, and she only won one event at the NCAA Division 1 tournament, and she's also not ranked first overall in Div 1. She's only ranked first overall for mid-major students, not overall. She's ranked like 36th or something. But that's besides the point, because if you see like a trans woman who dominates in female sports, you're gonna see trans women who dominate sports as rare as you're going to see any other athlete dominate at sports. And again, it feels unfair, but it's not unfair, and or at the very least, it's not as unfair as just telling all trans women that they can't compete just at all.
okay, so
they
let's
have
go
no
through.
dreams.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, yeah.
Just a couple hypotheticals. So
Mhm.
let's say that we continue down this road, and trans women and trans men are just never competitive in anything. Do you just say like kind of
Yeah.
like fuck them, or because I don't think that's ever gonna happen. I don't think trans men are gonna compete in any sports where these gender differences matter. I don't know if you disagree with that, but
Um, I think I kind of disagree with that, but that's just like predictions for the future. Well, that's up to trans men. Like trans men want to compete in male categories. Like that's the case, and you can't really have trans men compete in female categories because, well, you see what happens with people like Matt Beggs. They literally just dominate the female categories as
sure.
men.
So if trans men just don't ever make any headway, right? You're never gonna have a trans male linebacker or a trans male like NBA player. But if they just or even
I'm
like high level like Division 1 athletes, like you're not gonna see it. Do you? So
I mean,
if that never happens,
I
but
mean,
trans women
Isaac.
continue to do decently, do you just say, well, fuck trans men? I guess like that part of
Well,
it.
I mean, Isaac Hernig is someone who is like is someone who is no. I guess he's competing with the women. Never mind. That's a bad point on my part. Well, like the thing is with trans men is like what is there that you can like realistically do, because that's almost like a separate issue from trans women, because with trans men, like you can't have them compete in the female categories. They've taken testosterone, and it would be, and I think everyone would agree that trans men competing in female categories is unfair, but the men's categories, those are going to be open, like you said, those are going to be open categories. Like that's where they have to be, because they can't compete in the cis female categories. They have to compete in the male category. And yeah,
Wait, so I don't understand how we just keep saying that like it's a totally different issue. It's the same issue. The question is whether or not sex differences can be erased after a few years of hormone therapy.
well, the answer is, well,
Do you think
again,
the
the
answer
answer is
could be yes
incredibly
for
simple.
trans women but no for trans men?
Well, I mean, like I said, I disagree. Like I said, I disagree with trans men start to be competitive. Like part of the reason why we see more trans women succeed, or that we see trans women succeed first is twofold. One, there's probably more trans female athletes compared to the trans female population than there is trans male athletes compared to the trans male population. And second of all, there is like trans women do have an easier time moving from the male to female category than trans men do have from the female to male category. So it is natural that you're going to see trans women succeed first, considering it is going to be easier for a trans woman to transition into male category than it is for a trans man to transition into male categories. But that doesn't mean that that testosterone can never overcome the sex difference there. And we should also keep in mind that the actual like medication, the HRT they take, is different. So it absolutely let's say like once we have research into this more and we figure it all out, it absolutely can be the case that that trans women can have their sex differences eliminated, but trans men can't catch up to cis men. Like that could absolutely be the reality. We just don't know because we need more research into it.
So if there, and then I guess so. My second question would be: let's say that there were studies that showed that even when comparing height, people had higher lean body mass after 1 year or 5 years or whatever of hormone therapy. Would you reconsider your position, or would you just be like, ah, well, fuck it. Some people are just naturally stronger anyway?
So it would have to depend, it would have to depend, on like, how much lean body mass do they have better over like cis women, and you'd have to translate that into performance as well. Like let's say that trans women have a better lean body mass, but when we look at their actual like tests on strength tests and such, they don't actually like overperform. Well, that's the case. But let's say that they do overperform. I think some amount of overperformance is okay, but there is going to be a limit. If once we have fully researched and it shows that HRT does not reduce sport performance for trans women enough, then I'd say for a large like for sports where that is a greater discrepancy, that trans women probably should not be allowed. Or that if they are to allow trans women, they have to pass like specific tests, like lean body mass and strength tests and such like that. Like if that was the case, I would like be for like revising the current guidelines. But as far as the evidence that I've seen and what we've seen from trans women who have competed and what the world we live in now, I see no issue with the current policies.
Do what is like the latest study you have that controls for height that shows no difference in lean body mass or
I
athletic
don't.
performance?
I think very few, if any. I don't think control for height. So that's something that has to be done in the future. I do have. I do. I think there might be one that does show, but these are on untrained trans women and cis women. So again, your perfect ideal study would be
The one that's
on.
untrained is the
Yeah.
that's a 2001 study
Well,
in, or I'm sorry,
there's
that's a
multiple
2020 one
untrained
in
ones.
sports medicine, right? Okay, because the untrained ones all show significant differences even after transition,
Um,
right?
um, so I will. So let me pull that one up. Impact. I'll read. Actually, if I remember correctly, this study did not mention whether they were trained or not. I'll just give
If
it
they
to you.
don't mention, I would assume they're not trained because training is going to be an important
Yeah,
control for any study,
we
right?
evaluated 142 trans women during the first 3 months of, and they just mention an estrogen, and they just measure bone mineral density and body composition. I'll send it to you. So this one is, so you assume untrained, and this found that appendicular lean mass and total fat mass was similar in trans and reference women, and lower in trans women versus men. So
Wait, give me
like
give
like
me
a
10 minutes, or let me read this. Hold on, let me just read the
yeah,
results.
absolutely.
Okay, so this study
Hmm.
seems like it's almost exclusively looking at like bone mass and bone density. That seems like the most important thing that this study was focusing on.
And lean mass, it's both of them.
Wait, is it, or is it just this? It's only talking about appendicular lean mass.
Yes.
That's only appendicular is your that's only your arms and legs, right?
Hmm.
So I don't know what the I don't know why I would take that as being more important
Because
than like looking at overall like.
well, because we have very little data on lean mass and such. Like this is just like one example. Like I said, um, the Harper review, which is the best review that we have to date, um, shows that like hemoglobin levels are the same, but
Sure. Yeah. Wait. So
that
some
HRT
real quick. So some
decreases.
blood stuff can be like
Yeah,
very responsive to hormones. I understand that.
yeah, exactly.
Which
I was just going through
yeah, yeah, sure. But hold on. But
the
just
results of
focusing.
it.
Sure, I know. But just focusing on this one thing, right? So this
Yeah.
study looks like that it was taken 3 months, or the study was done
Hmm.
3 months after treatment, right?
Yeah.
So 3 months after treatment, let's think effect size for our study. Are you telling me that this study, after 3 months, saw no difference in lean body mass between trans women and cis women? You know that's not true based on everything else you read, right? So this study was clearly focusing on something else, like bone density is what it's looking at. Otherwise, that
Well,
affects.
bone density and appendicular lean mass. It didn't go for like total
Sure,
like
but I'm
lean
just saying
mass.
that like we would never you shouldn't be citing this to me as an example of how similar they are, trans women and cis women, because the effect here is insane. You're saying that after 3 months there is a significant change in lean mass. We both know that's not true. There's no
I mean
possible.
that is true. The first thing that HRT does is like fat redistribution and such. That like I mean, if you think the study
I
is
understand what you're
bogus,
saying. I understand
the
what you're
results.
saying, but I'm saying that
Yeah.
like if we had somebody training and
Hmm.
they're like an athletic person, 3 months of HRT is not erasing all of their gains and now putting them on a level system, right? Because you and me have been
Well,
arguing with this
no,
after
I agree
three
with that.
years of HRT, and there are studies showing there are still advantages. So there's no way that in three
No, I
months in this study that we've right.
no. The reason I brought this up is to show that data is inconclusive. I'm not saying that HRT will always get body lean mass to the same as cis women. I'm saying that the data is inclusive, and that's what the Harper review says. The Harper review shows that HRT will significantly decrease like muscle mass area and lean body mass, even though it doesn't take it down to cis female levels. But you can't really draw any conclusions from the data that's out there yet because it's so varying.
Yeah, there is a
It's
lot
not
of
the
varying,
highest
but like
quality.
my
Yeah, yeah.
understanding was there was a pretty big 2021, I think, in the British Journal of Medicine, or it might have been
That's
in.
literally what I'm talking about. This is the review I'm referencing. This is the Joanna Harper review in the British Medicine. That like the conclusion of that review, which reviewed 24 studies.
Uh-huh.
Like this is the one that we were talking about. It came to the conclusion that there's still not enough evidence to base policies around it. And it found that HRT significantly decreases lean body mass, but not to cis female levels. That's what I'm talking about.
Hold on. So I don't know in terms of the policy recommendations they make. I truly don't even know if
They
I
don't make policy
care. Yeah, I don't
recommendations.
know if I would care about policy. But the conclusion of this study was that in trans women, hormone therapy rapidly reduces HGB levels to levels seen in cisgender women. In contrast, hormone therapy decreases strength, LBM, and muscle area, yet values remain above that observed in cisgender women even after 36 months. These findings suggest that strength may be well preserved in trans women during the first 3 years of hormone therapy. So they might
Yeah.
say like this isn't enough to say like get him out of here or whatever, but like it's pretty clear what this review at least was showing.
Well, I know that's what I've been saying the whole time. This review found that HRT um, will significantly decrease like strength and lean body mass, but won't bring it down to cis female levels. I'm just trying to find. Okay, perfect. I have it right here. I did read. I have like read through this study and like if you go to the conclusion, hold on, give me 1 second here. Yeah, like for example, whether transgender and cisgender women can engage in meaningful sport even after gender-affirming hormone therapy is a highly debated question. However, before this question can be answered with any certainty, the intricacies of complexity and the factors that feed into the development of high-performance athletes warrant further investigation of attributes beyond those associated wherein herein. So like this review is saying that it seems to be that with the evidence that we have now that up to 3 years on HRT that trans women still retain some lean body mass advantage over cis women, but there still isn't enough high quality evidence to make these conclusions. And again, if we're going to be talking
Yeah,
about
hold on. I understand what you're
the
saying, and I
effects,
agree with you. But like, so one of
yeah,
the reasons why people do reviews is because like there isn't a lot of good evidence out there, right?
yes,
This isn't like a systematic analysis or whatever. It's
yeah,
just a review. Like they're basically gathering
mm-hmm,
24 studies, going through the conclusions, and being like, okay.
mm-hmm,
Like the studies aren't even good enough to make like compiled data sets or anything, right?
yeah.
But so that's obviously going to be what they're going to recommend at the end is that we need more research, of course, which I would
Mm-hmm.
expect them to. But right now, the direction that it's pointing to is that even 3 years after HRT, there still seems to be like differences in the muscle mass between trans women and cis women. No.
Well, yeah. I have said that. Yeah, that's what I've said the whole time. Yeah, that's what it seems to be. But I mean that brings back to the one criticism I do of the review is that the review doesn't control for height. And I know height matters when we're talking about whether trans women as a pool should be allowed. But when we're talking about the effects of HRT, height absolutely does matter, and you need to control for that in these studies. Because if you try and compare the lean body mass and the strength and like the muscle mass of a 5'9" trans woman on HRT and a 5'4" cis woman on 5'4" cis woman, you're obviously going to have a trans woman who's going to score better on all those metrics. But so that the highest quality study that we could get on this that would like set that would like find a conclusion that we can like make meaningful policy prescriptions off of is going to be one that controls for height, controls for training per sport, what kind of training, and length of training, and that stuff.
Even controlling for training and all of that
Yeah,
is going to be really hard because
yeah, it
training
is
as
going to
a
be hard.
male,
Research is hard.
well, no, because you can train harder as a male even too, right? Like you can't even necessarily put the same like training regimens up against each other, which is why that's why I was saying like even if all the advantages were wiped away, it might be the case that a cis woman has to work harder than a trans woman just because a trans woman can train so much harder, right? Like if I go to the gym the same amount as a guy on fucking roids, or actually even if you compare my training schedule to a guy on roids, that guy is gonna look like he trains way harder than me because that guy can go to the gym fucking twice a day. And then at the end when we do a study and compare, it's like okay, well we can't really compare Steven to Mr. Enhanced over here because that guy trained way harder. He didn't train fucking harder. The dude's on roids. I can't train that hard. I'll fucking die, right? But it's the same thing between like trans women and cis women too. So even like what even would look like an equivalent or comparable training schedule? It feels like there's a lot
Oh
of
well.
things like that. Yeah.
Oh well, I actually disagree with this with like this hypothetical, and specifically because if you're like a trans woman and you're training before you transition, before you start taking HRT, like you're going to be training like as hard as you can. Like there's no reason to assume that you're not going to be training. At like especially if we're talking about like professional athletes or just athletes like who do this training. You're going to be training like hard, and when we assess the effect, and if a cis woman's also going to be training hard, so like they're going to be training as hard as they can, and if you then apply 2 years of HRT to the trans woman, even though
I understand they're going to
they
be
might
training
have
as hard as they can. I
trained
agree with you. They're training as hard as
harder,
they can.
but
But what
like
I'm saying
their
is that
performance
men can
comes.
train harder than women. That's what I'm saying. That for the same
I
effort, like men can put in more effort. For the same effort, the man will get more, and the man can even put in more effort than the woman can. Like the woman is going to have to be centered more around like the recovery than the man will have to worry about it because testosterone just helps you recover your muscles so much quicker from resistance training.
Yeah, but then by the time like HRT takes in like that trans woman is going to have to like that deal with all of that stuff that comes with it, and because her performance takes such a hit that it comes to about like cis female levels, then yeah, even though they're like they're training let's say if two athletes were like a trans woman and a cis woman were training for like 3 years, and then the trans woman takes 2 years of HRT. Are we gonna say that in that 5 years total of training that it's unfair because the trans woman was training harder during her time before HRT than the cis woman? That feels like just an intuitive dismissal.
It's not. I guess I'm just like
Against
when we
trans
use
women.
words like train harder, like who do you think trains harder? Like a guy that goes to the gym every day or a guy that goes to the gym every other day?
Yeah, but we're talking about a guy. We're talking about a guy like a trans woman. We're talking about like a guy and a girl that are both trained. Like that's why you would control for training. You'd want them to have
Well, no, this is
the
why
same training regimens
I
for
understand
their
what you're saying. I'm
sex,
saying
right?
that this is what I'm getting at, right? When I say like the
Yeah.
difference, like who's training harder, a guy that trains like every other day or a guy that trains every day, right? Like arguably they're both training just as hard, right? I go to the gym Monday, Wednesday, Friday because that's the highest capacity for work I have. If I go to the gym every single day, then by day 3 or 4, I'm going to burn out and I can't work anymore. And then I'm either going to get injured or I just won't get any more muscle and I'm done. But a guy that's on gear, an enhanced individual, or maybe a naturally very, 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 very high test male, or like maybe like a 17-year-old boy, right? This motherfucker might be able to go to the gym Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, take Sunday off, and then hit it up for like 6 days again, maybe. Or people that are on gear can go way more harder than me, right? But it's like, are they working harder? I mean, maybe, kind of, but like the capacity that a person has for work can be dictated quite a bit by biology. I guess that's the only thing. That's why I don't think that you can ever like totally equalize this or like because if you were to get into like, okay, well now let's control for training regimens. Now we're going to control for height and we're going to control for training and we're going to control for effort. I mean, at some point you can control so much stuff that there's going to be no difference because now you've like controlled away everything and now
Well, we've already been controlling for trained athletes. Like in studies that have training, there is specific there is going to be specific like separations based on the type of athlete that they have. Studies that specifically have athletes who train. They don't just take like a weightlifter and then like a speed skater and then just put them together and say that they're both trained athletes. No, they're going to separate them into categories based on like what training that they've had. And so like a study that controls for height doesn't actually have to do anything extraordinary to control for training because that's something that studies that have athletes already do. Like there was a study on muscle fiber that I was looking at. That for example, they specifically did this. They were looking at the differences in muscle fiber from athletes from water polo, judo, and karate, and they found like different results because they're different sports. But that's something controlling for train like that. Like that's all you need. Like this is something that studies like will already do when they have trained athletes. You just need to height match. That's really all that you need to do, and like get like a large enough sample size, right? Like and once you once you'd have a study with that, then you would probably see the most accurate results. And again, based on what we've seen, we'll probably see that trans women will retain a small but still a notable advantage in lean body mass, anywhere from similar to present. I'd say is just my like estimate based on the data that I've seen, ranging from that is pretty inconclusive, ranging from
Okay.
multiple ends.
All right. Well, hey, listen, I appreciate the conversation. And you want to shout yourself out?
Yeah, my name's Ashley Jubilee. I talk about trans stuff and hockey, and I play Overwatch. That's the only game I play. I'm
Gotcha.
happy this conversation, happened and went well. I'm glad it was way better than the panel because Jesus Christ.
Thanks a lot. What do you want to do with your music degree?
I originally wanted to be a high school band teacher because when I was in high school band, my high school band teacher did so much for me, and same with like drama teachers. Like every high school kid like has like the teacher that they love, and I really wanted to like help kids and such. With like by being like a high school band teacher, and I just like love music. It's just something I've literally been doing my whole life. I've played like so many instruments. I love music. But currently right now I'm just kind of like taking music and drama courses just so I can like stay at the university because I'm kind of pivoting my stuff towards just like basic like trans advocacy. Like I just did a charity stream the other day that raised like $2,600, which I think is pretty cool for a new
Mm-hmm.
streamer. But that's kind of what I've been doing with my degree and such.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, good luck. Thanks for the conversation.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
Bye.
See you.